To acknowledge our former Premier, Willis Mchunu. Thank you very much for being with us. And I think there's another, Babam Siwa, is it Siwa? Welcome to you representing that aspect of our discussion now. May I now ask you who's going to do the presentation of the from the Premier's office in regard to the strategic plan?
Good morning, Chairperson.
Morning.
My name is Bata. Let me once again greet you, the Chairperson and the KZN leadership, the KZN Provincial Planning Commission members, whom are amongst ourselves. Chairperson, may I ask, through your permission, that we request the colleagues from the Office of the Premier Strategic Management Branch to formally introduce the PPC leadership that is amongst ourselves, as we just alluded to, and then they will just hit straight to the presentation. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. Douglas, did you want to do something before that happens? I see your hand is raised.
No, Cardinal, I think let's proceed. It was
okay, let's proceed then. Thanks, ma'am. If you wouldn't mind, Bata, if you could proceed with the introduction.
Thank you, Chairperson. My name is Marty Milne. I'm responsible for provincial planning and policy coordination within the Office of the Premier, also providing support with my colleagues to the Provincial Planning Commission, who, as you have indicated, our chairperson is Mr. Mzimkhulu Msiwa. He will be taking us through the presentation, also supported by our former Premier and Deputy Chairperson, Mr. Willis Mqunu. I have brought with me two team members to help with backup support. So Mrs. Dawning will be showing the presentation whilst the Chairperson takes us through. And then Anna's iPhone is Miss Anna Ashika Singh, also heading up our departmental and provincial planning team. Chair, without further ado, I'm going to then hand over to my chairperson, Mr. Msiwa, to take us through the presentation. Thank you very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. Lovely. Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Baba. If you'd go on.
Good morning, Cardinal. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Baba Matengwana, the Deputy Chairperson, and good morning to all the people that have actually joined us today. The purpose, naturally, of this discussion is actually to share the Provincial Growth and Development Strategy, which is a plan. In fact, the Provincial Planning Commission is a body that is an advisory body to the Premier and to the Provincial Executive Council. Its main function is actually to advise on the growth and the development of the strategy. I will then move straight to the presentation as we've got here. The presentation will just touch on maybe just 5 areas, introducing sort of the whole thinking around the provincial growth and development strategy, highlighting issues that have guided the review. And maybe it's important just to say the review, it is a review because this is the 3rd strategy for the province. The strategy is 5-year, it's got a period of 5 years, and after every 5 years it's reviewed. So we are reviewing the 2nd PGDS. I will then share the outline and the progress to date, and I will then also share high-level process issues for noting. As I've indicated, the PGDS is up for a 5-year review. Our focus really is to hear critical strategic matters that we need to include to grow the province of KZN. And critically, sort of the audience that we've got here today, which is really dealing with most of the issues around the social foundation of our society, will naturally sort of give us some strong inputs as to the direction that we should also be taking.
Thank you.
Just from a process perspective, all I was saying is that the first strategy was, we are in the 3rd strategy. It was, the first one was about 2010, then there was the second one in 2015. We're actually in the 3rd strategy, which is the 2025 strategy. Now, the process is that we then develop the strategy, and after developing the strategy, we then develop what we call the Provincial Growth and Development Plan. I think the mission of the PGDS, of course, is a provincial strategy to grow the province for the benefit of the citizens. And we normally at the Commission, when we talk, it is about strengthening the social foundation. and the social foundation naturally is key and critical to a prosperous KZN. The elements naturally of that social foundation are, food, income, health, gender equity, social equity, education, resilience, voice, jobs, energy, and so on. So these are the areas that naturally we're hoping to impact positively through the strategy. The review has started, of course, as I've indicated. The PGDS was adopted in 2015. The last review was actually in 2016. We are now trying to get the strategy to the beneficiaries of the strategy, which is the greater community of KZN, through various structures that are in place, through targeted consultation, through webinars, through focused discussions to actually get the input on the thinking that we've got on the current plan. The issues that have guided us, of course, in the review of the strategy is actually we have looked at what has worked in the past years and what has not worked and what we need to improve. We are also aware, as it has already indicated in the first presentation, that the COVID-19 is a major threat to the prosperity, growth, and or resilience of the communities in KZN and in South Africa in particular. We've actually looked at what we need now with some experience. As with strategy, it's always informed by some assumptions, and we have realized that some of the assumptions that we had previously have not worked, and we have then tried to change that in the strategy. We've also been informed by the Lekgotla resolutions of 2019 and 2020. We've also been informed by the National Development Plan and, of course, the review of the National Development Plan, the Medium-Term Strategic Framework, which we call the MTSF, National and Provincial Priorities. And now our role as a commission is actually to try and get all these plans into a single plan that can actually and is relevant to our situation in KZN. We've done a situational analysis, and basically what we're trying to focus on, I think the presentation, we've done a situational analysis, and as I've indicated, the country has also done a 25-year review of actually what has been the main achievements in the past 25 years since our democracy, what has worked and what we need to change. We are now, as part of this very same discussion, and we're so grateful, Cardinal, that we have this audience to actually now present our work so far.
Thank you.
The approach that we are wanting to reinforce in really moving forward is that we would like to move into what we call an outcome-based approach. In other words, deal with what impacts. In other words, what is it that we really concretely need to see changed? And what is it that we really need to actually do to actually achieve that? And actually, what is it that what is called the outputs? So that is now the current sort of framework in the strategy. It's more an outcome-based rather than an activity-based. Guided, of course, the income-based is actually very much influenced by what people in the academic space call the theory of change. In other words, start with the end in sight and make sure that whatever you do actually contributes to the end objective that you are actually driving. Naturally, I'm saying this is just going to be, if you look at the document, this will be the table of contents in the document. You will see sort of the introduction. You'll see the policy context that has informed, which we call chapter 1 of the strategy. Then we'll then go to chapter 2 of the strategy. Naturally, when we look at the work that we're doing, you'll see that while there are national priorities that have been determined at a national level, the province has also highlighted to be its provincial priorities. And you will see on the second column what and how we have actually matched those. My internet connection is unstable. How we've actually sort of merged those into the document. You will see most of the. I'm just waiting. Yeah. Can we move on, Don, to the next slide? Okay. As I've indicated, when we developed this plan, we needed to make sure that is total alignment from the ward-based plans, which are at the core, that's where communities are, to the municipal IDPs, to the district development plans, to the provincial plans, and to the national development plan. And naturally also being aware of continental issues that are actually happening, the SDGs, and of course, the timing horizon of all these plans. Now we've got to merge all this together and naturally from there then come up with a 5-year plan, which will then be broken into annual plans. These are sort of the structures that are actually supporting the implementation and the guidance of the development of the plan. And as I've indicated, the Provincial Planning Commission naturally is an advisory body to the Premier. We've got a number of consultative forums partners, and I think that's actually highlighted. The slide is a little bit clouded, but this is actually the consultation and the formation structures that are guiding the development of the plan. As I indicated, chapter 2, we have done what we call the strategic analysis, looking at, and naturally in doing so, we've adopted what we call the sustainability metrics framework, which is about the environmental resilience, human development and social capital, radical economic transformation, economic development, infrastructure, spatial development, governance, and cross-cutting focus areas. Now, this is what normally you would say that it's a status quo, what prevails in respect of those sustainability metrics issues. We then move on to chapter 3 to actually indicate what is the vision of the province in respect of driving growth and development. And then we then move then into the real meat of the strategy, which is your chapter 3.2. That is the real meat where we would really like to get strong input and contribution, because those are the areas that are actually teased out in the document, and where we are starting to say these are our aspirations in respect of all these 6 priority areas. Can we move on, John? Naturally, when province is actually very, very wide, and I think as we have seen from the previous presentation, spatial targeting is important. You cannot only tell communities what you will do, you also need to tell communities where that will be happening. And the where part of all these 6 initiatives that I've alluded to in section 3.2 are actually sort of teased out in this chapter, which we call the spatial development framework. In other words, what we plan to be happening everywhere and naturally integrating those issues within the sustainability framework matrix. We then move on to chapter number 5 of the strategy, where we say that we use the word catalytic projects. There are some projects that have got a multiplier effect that once you start with them, they've got what we call a snowballing effect. They're able just to change the picture. We list what we believe what those projects should be, which will be successful for the implementation. Naturally, when we're looking at these catalytic projects, we're looking I'm using the eye of saying, to what extent are they going to be dealing with the issues of poverty? To what extent are they going to be helping us to deal with the issues of inequality? So they only get to be in this list if they are going to be significant contributors, naturally to jobs, naturally to the growing of the economy, and naturally to bringing in more of our communities into production, and not only to be consumers, but also to be producers of wealth and developing the wealth of the province. We then go to chapter 6, where we tease out the institutional framework for the implementation of this strategy. And then naturally, we then go to a critical component, which is the monitoring and the evaluation of the work that we do. Because I think that's one area that we really need, we are planning and we are going to be focusing very strongly as a planning commission as to whether the programs that are on the table are really bringing about the change that we're all aspiring to achieve, whether the interventions that we are doing are actually bringing ultimately the impact that we are wanting to see in KZN. So the whole focus of the monitoring and evaluation will look at starting from the type of input outputs that are coming in from the programs that different stakeholders are driving. Are they giving us the right outcomes? Are they also, and what is it then that we need to do to actually review and monitor that? John, let's move on. Well, naturally, our vision is a very simple one, where our aspiration is for a prosperous province with healthy, secure, and skilled population, living in dignity and in harmony, and KZN being a gateway to Africa and the world. I'm not going to go very much into the content, because now this is actually the content in each and every chapter. Given that I'm saying this is the first chance that this document is in front of this audience, I will just highlight that in each chapter, this is what you will see. And this is where we are really also requesting for an input to say, if in these chapters there's anything that you are not finding, please let us know. I indicated that chapter 3 is about 7 issues. Primarily is to build the capacity and the capability of the state to actually deliver on its mandate to the people of South Africa. All these areas are actually teased in detail in chapter 3 of the document. And we would really, as a commission, request that these issues naturally be teased. If there's any new wisdom that we need, we should then bring that. We also are also saying in chapter 3, I think to us, one of the key things that we are trying also to deal with, and we are bringing that, it's the work that we have done in terms of making sure that rural communities have got sufficient water in the form of investment in terms to ensure that they continue, that water continues to support the productivity efforts of rural communities in particular. So it's an element in the chapter where we've dealt with, which we feel is also going to be a groundbreaker. Then we move on. Our areas of concern naturally in the document, because we have produced this document, and when we did our own, we felt that these areas that we have highlighted here are areas where really we would like to get some strong input. We've done our best, but we also feel that the input from consultation processes would also strengthen, so the strategy. So we are highlighting these areas so that if also specifically into this area. John, let's move on. Naturally, as I indicated, this is about chapter 4, let alone sort of the technical terminology of Spluma and whatever. But basically what this chapter does is to say all the things that we think we need to do need to be located in a geographical space. Also taking into account the natural endowments that these particular spaces have. In other words, we mustn't try and do what is not good for that particular area from a natural endowment perspective. But from a developmental perspective, we're also saying, bring those issues into those spaces where development challenges forces us to actually focus on. So again, this is a very, heavy slide for the presentation, and more especially for a Monday morning. We really appreciate that, but it's very important that we highlight the spaces so that we actually guide the input, or we influence, not guide, the input that is actually coming into the plan. As I indicated, these are some of the major infrastructure projects that are in Chapter 5. Chapter 6, again, is the implementation framework, where we are again focusing on making sure that we really drive an outcome-based developmental approach. Chapter 7, as I've indicated, outlines the monitoring and evaluation so that the Premier and the Provincial Executive Council are able to actually have objective evidence of actually the performance of the province and able to account to the communities of KZN. We are now, it's the consultation process, as I'm saying, we are now consulting. We have submitted the plan to various stakeholders. It has received a thumbs up so far, but that is not adequate until we've heard the voice. We have a philosophy in the Planning Commission of leaving no one behind. So we would even like to hear the remotest voice coming into the plan. We have got to actually present as the Commission the consulted document by the 31st of March to the Premier and of course to the Provincial Executive Council. We implore and request, the various stakeholders to actually visit our website, which is www.kznppc.gov.za, and also just to give you just written inputs and so on, so that then we can then be able to consolidate areas of improvement. And we will try and listen to every voice, and to the extent that that is possible, we will actually put that into the plan. Naturally, there's the issues of resource leveling that we'll have to look at, but that will be accommodated in terms of actually phasing in different financial years the initiatives that need to be taken into account. Let's move on. I've now come to the end of the presentation, and I must really, from the Planning Commission side, and I'm sure I'm echoing the voice of Uba Matingwana, who is a very, very valuable resource to the Commission, and who has got quite a depth in terms of actually understanding the environment and in the previous roles that he has played. And on behalf of the Planning Commission, on behalf of the Secretariat, Cardinal, we would like to thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to present. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Msiwa. Thank you. And now I'm going to open it to the floor if anyone has any questions or comments or contribution to make is Samsiwa has been asking very much for our input into the plan. So if anyone, please raise your hand. If you can take the presentation off so I can see the people's faces or hands when they raise them, I'd be very happy.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone coming on? Yes, from Zondi.
Well, thank you, Cardinal, and also thank you to Mr. Siwa for the presentation, quite a detailed presentation. I have two questions. The first one would be, given that this is the third plan, are there any reviews that have been done on the first two plans? For example, if there are, what were the gaps? What were the gaps identified in the first two plans? And then the second question is, what is this commission's role in assisting with the implementation? Because I do know that it's been said that in our country, we sometimes are very good at planning, but when it comes to implementation, we then are found wanting. Is there a structure that assists with ensuring that when I do accept that it's an advisory, it plays an advisory role, but is there any other structure or that's done by Parliament? Thank you.
Okay, let's have another question there, I think from Douglas and then from Sarah. Douglas, please. Douglas seems to have his hand up, but he's not talking. Sarah, would you come on then?
Okay. Thanks so much for that presentation. It was really interesting. I've got two questions, largely linked around priority 2, which is around economic transformation and job creation. Now, we all know that the jobs are fantastic, but the types of jobs we create are fundamental to the impact that they have on communities and in terms of achieving some of those catalytic outputs that you mentioned. So I'm interested to know in what is being done to ensure that those jobs are both decent and green. So what is being done to ensure that where we are looking to create new jobs, we can ensure that they are going to be decent jobs for all, and that we are starting to prioritize a transition to the green economy within the province. My second question is around the informal sector. Now, what is within that priority 2? You mentioned kind of an overall principle around leave no one behind, which is a fantastic kind of principle coming out of the SDGs. And I'm interested in hearing what are you doing to consult with the informal economy? We know that economy is essential for jobs, essential for livelihoods in our province. We also know that there are not many decent jobs there, that people are living hand to mouth. And we know that they are normally excluded from planning, from accessing support, from a whole range of kind of essential services that are given to businesses. And so what is being done to consult with the informal economy, and what is being done to actively bring them in to your priority 2 around economic transformation and job creation?
Thank you. And if I may add to that, in this informal sector question, I would also like to ask about the manual skills. That's an area that is a great need nowadays. The artisans are very hard to get. Good artisans are very hard to get. Is that included in the plan? Are we all looking at IT kind of jobs and the blue-collar, white-collar jobs rather than the manual ones? Thank you. Can you take those 3 questions, and was a plan is put in theory? What about the implementation? What types of jobs are to be created? What about the informal sector, and in particular the manual skills? Is there anything included in that area? Thank you. Douglas, would you still like to make your question now, or you come on afterwards? Well, Baba Msia, would you go ahead then, please, to answer those questions?
Thank you, Cardinal. And again, thank you very much for these great questions. I will start by the first question that related to reviews. Yes, we have done, as I indicated, that in our chapter 2 of the plan, where we did a situational analysis, you will actually see where that review was actually sort of undertaken, what were the type of issues that started to emerge. And in fact, this is actually what has influenced us to actually now start to adopt an outcome-based approach. In other words, show evidence of things that start to change things and not move away from activities. Because most of our reporting has been around activities. You know, we have done that. And the question is, as a result of doing that, what has then changed? We are now going to be focusing more especially on monitoring and evaluation to actually make sure that we focus on the outcomes. The role of the Commission, we have decided as a Commission that we will be supporting very strongly the monitoring and the evaluation. And as you're rightfully pointing out, most of the issues and the challenges that we're facing are not about policy, that are around the issue of the implementation. And the lack of, naturally, of poor implementation results in that there is a very broad accountability area that needs to be strengthened. And you can only do that objective accountability by putting up a very strong monitoring and evaluation framework. We will be assisting the Premier and the Executive Council as a Commission. We've got quite a broad range of stakeholders and a knowledge base that we can draw from research institutions and so on to actually prosecute the monitoring and evaluation of our plans and actually bring concrete evidence in terms of that. The issues that are raised by Sarah is that we are very much aware that the quality and the type of jobs, and I think the point is, unless we start to bring a significant number of our communities into production, in other words, what we normally call in the Commission, into the space of buying money and not into the space of selling money. So, and that actually starts at the lowest strata, where you are able to get the Andes that are in groups that are producing vegetables, not to get their vegetables just for consumption, but also to find market action to actually earn income and so on. So that is really going to be, it's not just the type of a job where you come in and you get somebody. That is very limited. We need to get more of our communities to be in the production line from the lowest levels of our communities. With the issue of there's a lot of work that is being done by the Department of Economic Development. And we're wanting to zoom straight into that work because the informal economy is what has supported our critical situation with COVID. I mean, say, food is being brought on the table, not from food. And the issues of red tape
but you're breaking up
is one of the areas that we need to. I'm just saying that the issue of red tape, because you will find that an entrepreneur that wants to do something at the lowest level, the red tape actually inhibits sort of that person from actually realizing his or her aspiration. I must say that a lot of work is being done in the Department of Economic Development in the province to actually focus specifically, so that to the extent that we encourage the green economy. And that's why we have adopted the sustainability matrix as a basis for this. Manual skills. Hello?
Babamsia, I think you're breaking up. I don't know if one...
Am I still audible?
You're breaking up badly. Could one of your team reply on behalf of you?
Yes, I'll ask about my Tlingwana to please come in, please.
Baba Willis?
Cardinal, good morning, as well as to all church leaders and the teams from the Office of the Premier. Let me indicate from the start that as we go on doing consultations, we don't claim to have all the answers. Therefore, when we come to you, what we are also looking for is what are the sort of main emphasis from your group that we should be consistently working towards. The questions that have come through can be answered, yes, but the main question is, are we able to get the departments, as you know, Cardinal and church leaders? The work of the Planning Commission is mainly to plan strategy, to help the government, but to also monitor the implementation of that strategy, as the chairperson of the commission has said. In the main, the work of implementation and interpretation of the strategy is still left with the department. Our task, which we have tried to ensure we master within the commission, is to make sure that each of the commissioners are allocated to a specific work group, action work group, which is where the actual processing of plans that would answer these questions take place. Take, for instance, the issue of the informal sector. As the chairperson was saying, we've adequately covered in our strategy that needs to be addressed. But whether the Department of Economic Development is the main arm of government that has now to practically put that in place. But there is an economic cluster, there is a work group, action work group within that economic cluster, where our competent commissioners who are clear with the economy participate, and that's where they direct things. And then our task is to monitor that program afterwards. I'm not giving you the full detail, I accept that, but I'm trying to give an understanding of that functioning and the roles, the different roles. I hope that represents my chairperson, who so far has covered me quite well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Baba. Baba Sonto, would you like to, I see your hand is raised, would you like to make a point? Sonto? No. No response from that one? Okay.
Oh, can I come in now?
Yes, please.
I have a few questions. The first one is the role of the faith sector in the implementation of the PGDS. I think this is probably the first time we have such a significant consultation process. But if this was launched in 2011. As far as I can remember, I think there's been no meaningful and practical involvement of the faith sector in the implementation of the PGDS. That's one question. I will link it to the, for example, the KwaZulu-Natal Christian Council has got a project on farming on church land, and has been seeking support from Department of Agriculture and from other department sectors without success, which I think that is unfortunate, because this would have been one way in which the faith sector contributes to the growth and development strategy. My second question is, to what extent does the growth and development strategy address the land issues in KZN, as well as address particularly the challenges faced by the landless community? Groups like Abahlali, Basemjondolo, and Landless People's Movement. Then my third question is on that growth and development is definitely affected by these pandemics such as HIV and then at the moment the coronavirus. And NGOs and the faith-based organizations are doing quite a lot of work to mitigate the impact of corona and HIV, but there is no support at all from the provincial government. What kind of support do you think could be given to the faith organizations that are contributing tremendously in this context? The last question is, I didn't see ways in which social cohesion and community integration are linked to the provincial growth and development strategy. Yet it is a significant plan by provincial government. How are the two linked? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Before anyone answers, please, time is not on our side. We have to stop at 9 o'clock. So please keep the answers brief and to the point, if at all possible. Sarah, you wanted to, I think you covered, Sarah, on the points that Douglas has just made.
Yes, and there's one other from Peter.
Just put that up then, and then we can just add the full answer there.
So priority number 1 of the provincial strategic plan is a capable, ethical and developmental state. Unfortunately, the capacity and ethics of government is constantly in doubt based on the events and experience of recent years. How can we galvanize our networks around this plan when the bucket keeps leaking at a leadership level? And I also see Bishop Zondi's hand is up.
Yeah. Please, we got very limited time. So, Baba Zondi, just one question, please.
I've lowered my hand. I'm covered.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Can we, somebody, Adam Sia or Baba Kingwane, come on again, please?
Thank you for the questions. I'll go straight to the point cardinals that are raised, and I will be looking for support naturally in other areas from Ubama Kingwane, the Deputy Chairperson. On the question of social, there's a chapter that we deal with in the strategy about human and social development. And those are the areas that deal with the issues of cohesion, resilience, working with different sort of stakeholders. But what I will also like to hear is also suggestions that might be coming specifically from people that are on the ground, that are experiencing these problems, also to advance possible suggestions and solutions. Because as Bob Michael is saying, is that we don't have an answer to everything, because at times we are not on the ground. What we assume might not be what is pertaining on the ground. And we would really like to implore that work. On the question of the freight sector, I do want to say that perhaps we have covered.
trying to ask for your expertise earlier, but saying the deal is okay. I think that's interference. Carry on, please, Baba Messiah.
Now, I just on the question of the freight sector, we have dealt with broadly under the logistics. There are some logistic hubs naturally that bring in sort of the freight sector. And perhaps we need to get some more input in terms of people that are actually working in that particular sector as the commission. On the issue of the land issues and the landlessness, there's two chapters, the chapter on local government, and we have actually highlighted this area, and the chapter on human settlements in the strategy. We again are inviting more targeted, not generic, more targeted sort of inputs. On the issue of the capacity of the state and the capability of the state, I think we are all very much concerned, and I think it's a priority number one of the commission, because all these nice plans are not going to bear any fruit unless we actually really lift our boots and straps in really dealing with the issues of the capacity to actually implement. And we think the starting point is actually will be that of holding people accountable to outputs and not to activities. So we think from our side, the outcome-based approach will assist us to actually dig deeper into these areas. But we would also welcome some interventions into that. That now you can just cover me on other areas if I've just left them out.
Baba Mtingwan, and then Baba Zondi, and then for Baba, who was the other one that was looking for a speak?
Cardinal.
Okay, yes, speak, Baba Mtingwan.
Cardinal and other members, I think we, as the chairperson has indicated, it will be remembered that we have emphasized as well on social cohesion. That's where we believe the faith-based leadership can play a major role in ensuring the social cohesion of this province in particular, but act as an example for the country as a whole, because we have a unique arrangement that we can all utilize freely. I'm just answering that one question, which I thought links with the faith-based community. But the rest, the chairperson has represented.
Okay. Thank you very much, Baba. Baba Ngane?
Mine was a chairperson. Mine was a proposal, because seemingly from the presentation, the response by Mr. Siwa is that they are looking for suggestions as well. May I suggest that the Planning Commission considers including the faith sector in the commission itself, given the vast and wide representation, widespread the faith sector in this province, the spread of the sector in this province. If it's possible to create space for representation of the faith sector in the place, so that we don't get involved only at implementation, because in most cases that's a bit late. But if we are represented at that level, I think it would be benefit the province greatly. That's my suggestion.
Okay, thank you. All right, and I think was there somebody that was asking to speak there? Reverend Tanda.
Yes, Chairperson, thank you very much. Mine is to say to the Commission, if they can please consider the issue of triple PE on this matter, because there is a private sector want to invest in the programs of government, but the bureaucracy policies are not allowing those investors to come in and assist in order to quicken the issue of investment on other projects. Also, when they talk about the skills development, we would like the Commission to consider to invite or work with the sitters. There's a lot of money and capability there that they can do. So we advise that they must also go to invite sitters to participate with this program. So that is my point, because as we deal with the 4IR, we need e-learning. We need also our rural communities and townships to be able to participate and be able to connect with the world in these issues.
Thank you very much, Baba.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that last contribution. Very useful suggestions there that we need to have. One of the presenters spoke about red tape being an obstacle. You mentioned it in a different way, bureaucracy, but the same effect. It stops people from being able to do what they can do and what we need them to do. So that's one of the things that perhaps the Planning Commission could take to heart and into their consideration. I'm going to ask Sarah to please close now, ask us just to give a vote of thanks and to also just close with the prayer. Thank you, Sarah. If you would come on board, please.
Yeah, they are closing with the prayer.
Sure. Thank you so much to everybody for joining today and for this chance to input. It will be great to take up this discussion further and to look at ways that we can continue engaging with you. Yeah, we look forward to continuing this discussion. So let's just close in prayer. Father, thank you for this opportunity to gather this morning. Thank you for the life that you have given us, the hands, the hearts, the brains that you have given us. May they be put to good use today and this week. May you walk alongside us and accompany us in all of our work. Thank you, Father. Amen.
Amen. And on behalf of the steering committee of KZN response to COVID-19, I would like to say to everyone who was present here, the ones who have already gone from the health department to the planning committee that has been with us this morning, thank you very, very much. It was a most useful time. And so I wish you well, especially with your projects. If I may just throw a thought into your thinking, what about if we're going to get to a practical level and get more and more people involved? One home, one garden, one family, many incomes. Let's have some simple slogans of that kind to drive this plan, rather than having it in very high technical terms. Let's put down some very simple slogans that people can join into and can take the whole process further. Thank you very much, and God bless you all with a very successful week. I hope everyone has a good time this morning and for the rest of the week. God bless. Bye.
Thank you, Cardinal. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Cardinal. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bless you very much.
Thanks, Cardinal. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.